Hello there. Welcome to this episode of the Shieldio Guide, where I'll be going over the damn vulnerable web application cross-site scripting stored on low security for you today. From the red and purple team perspectives, there is no blue team perspective due to detection limitations because we do not have a WAF. Don't need to worry about that at the moment. However, this will cover the red team perspective, how to actually execute that exploit, and then the purple team perspective, how you can automate that execution. Although in this instance, there are some other complications that would need to be kept in mind. Again, prerequisites, as always, you're going to want to make sure that you have access to an instance of the damn vulnerable web application. I have that hosted on GitHub with the red team setup. And then, of course, no blue team setup this time. Let us begin, as always, with the basic browser. We can look at what we are dealing with. Here it is already open. We're going to say name cat, and then my message is hi, I'm new here, something like that. And then you can sign the guest book. You can see, okay, cool, name cat, and then message. Now it's within the actual HTML. Interesting. We can do a little inspect element on that element, and then the two comments. So the top comment as highlighted here, and then this comment highlighted here. We can then look and see, that's directly within the HTML. Awesome. What does that mean for us today? It means we might be able to introduce some interesting things into that that comment. We'd also want to note the method by which these things happen. In this instance, it's a post request. It's not a get request. So we are posting into the database. That will all happen via the message body, and therefore it is not observable by the default logging that we currently have. It must be logged via a WAF, which we do not have access to on low security, but maybe on medium security, there might be something interesting. We will do another comment. We will call my name is XSS, and this will be script, and then alert one script. Sign guest book. Boom. Awesome. We have successfully input the correct parameters to be able to execute cross-site scripting. Now, the issue is this is stored in the guest book every time you reload the page. So if I go to reflect it and I'll go, okay, let's go back to stored, it will execute every single time the page loads. So we need to clear the guest book such that when I go back to it again, it's not going to happen again. Just something to keep in mind when running these exploits. How about we exfiltrate the PHP session ID from a logged in user? Is that possible? Why, yes, of course it's possible. Again, to bind to port 80, you're going to want to run the incantation to set the capabilities. We're not going to worry about that at the moment. We will start our little web server, and then the comment that we are going to execute is too long for the default field. Here you can see the max length is about 50 characters for our text area, and I mean, what's this close, like 15 for the text input. We can alter that. It's as easy as setting the max length variable within text area to be, in this instance, 1,000, and then you can input 1,000 characters into that text area. Just something to keep in mind. We will then copy this specific value. Again, inspecting on an element will open that element right up for you. Okay, so it's 50. We can change that to 10,000. And then we're going to close this, put our name as ASDF, and then my comment. So, wow, such a great comment, much interesting. And then script. So script is now fetching HTTP localhost. You can imagine how you could change this to some other value. We're not going to worry about that at the moment. And then plus document.cookie, because that's where the cookie is stored. We can then sign the guest book. So now it's loaded. You can see it's not actually appearing there as rendered. But what about, there is my session cookie. We can confirm that if we do an inspect element and then look at the storage cookie GJ8. GJ8. Awesome. My cookie, that's not really that interesting. What if we were to look at someone else's cookie? Which, if they were to log in, you would be able to. So in this instance, as demonstrated here, you can log in with the leet user and then place the PHP session value, and actually, like, this is just demonstrating part of the side channel to wrap up that the CSRF challenge. We can actually then take that lead user and change his password. Now another, we can try, what are their passwords again? So now what happens if we log in as another user? Let's say, for instance, Smithy, and so we can see here, Smithy, we're logged in. We're going to set our security to low, just so everything's on the same page. We can then open up the stored cross-site scripting. Great. We can view the page, and then here is Smithy's session ID. So now anyone that views this page, we can then grab their session ID and do whatever we want with it. Great. Obviously, you wouldn't, in real life, you wouldn't put this to localhost and all that sort of stuff. But we're not going to worry about that at the moment. Instead, we can continue our mission. There are some interesting caveats. This is an interesting one. If you, let's say, put in 1,000 characters in the text message, it will actually give you, interestingly enough, a DBMS error message. Are there other things that you could do to abuse this database? Probably. But just for point of reference, something interesting to keep in mind. Always be, if you have a parameter to test it. Throw as many characters as you want at it and see what happens. Could be fun. And that's all for the red team perspective of the stored cross-site scripting. We can then move over to the purple team perspective. However, something to keep in mind is that you have to clear the guest book before you run any of the nuclei templates. So just keep that in mind. But I'll see you in a second for that. And then the purple team for stored cross-site scripting. This is a very short one. It's literally one command. We don't really need to worry about it. As stated previously, make sure the guest book is cleared of any current cross-site scripting attempts. And then it is literally one command, one shot, run and done. Paste that, and then easy. If you wanted to look at the template, because it uses a different method, it's actually interacting directly with the xargs, or the xpaths. So it's actually directly interacting with the web service, or the website, sorry. That's just something to keep in mind. However, it's relatively simple to follow if you wanted to do that at home or modify this for some other purpose. It's out there. You can use it as you want. We can then look at the guest book, reflected, stored, and just have a look what's there. Awesome. So it has worked correctly. And then you just get a random name and the message that pops in. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next one.